evening that John and I tried to cross the river when it was flooding, and learned a huge lesson, I'll say, that day. So this was not one of the major, it wasn't Irene, it wasn't one of the major storms, but we had had maybe 2 days of heavy, heavy rain. And John worked at the college in Middlebury, so he had left that day and gone to work. And I left with him and was in town, and it kept raining. And someone said to me, probably midday, "Have you seen the river in Lincoln? It's really getting bad." And I said, "Oh, I haven't seen it yet." So I worked for the select board at that point. I was the select board assistant, and it was they have nightly meetings twice a month, and it was one of those days. So the plan was that I was going to go to the town office and do my select board meeting, and then they often would go until 9:30 or 10 at night, and John would always come across on the tram to meet me when I was coming home and kind of pick me up, and we'd come back together. So I got ready to drive up to the town office, and as soon as I turned to Lincoln and looked at the river, I just went, "Oh my God." So I had thought I was going to come across on my own first, change clothes, be here a little while, then go back out to the select board meeting. Instead, when I looked at the river, I knew immediately that there was no way I would cross that river alone. And so I decided to just go straight to the town office. And when I got there, I emailed John and said, "You better get home sooner rather than later. The river is really getting high. I'm going to be at the town office." And I still thought he'd come home, he'd come across, he'd feed the dogs, and we'd do our usual thing. I'd go to the select board meeting. So I was speaking with the head of the select board, and I told him that I might have to leave the meeting a little early if it was really bad, that I was kind of waiting to hear from my husband. And he looked at me then and he said, "Lolly, I don't know if it's so much a matter of when you cross as if you should cross." And I kind of, I heard that, but I really just trusted my husband. He was very physically capable, and he had hiked 3 major cross-country trails and faced a lot of adverse conditions, so I just knew that he would make the call and we would do it. So Bill, the chairman of the select board, even said, "You're welcome to stay at my house." And I said, "Well, we have the dogs over there. We got to go feed them." So about 30 minutes later, John came driving up in the town park, the town office parking lot in his truck, and he walked in the door, and I just started saying, "Hey," like wanting to tell him what the deal was before I had to go to my meeting. And I said, "Bill knows I might need to leave early, and he's okay with that, so if I need to leave early." And I finished, and I realized that by the end of whatever I was saying, John was just looking at me like I had grown 2 heads, And I finished, and he goes, "Sweetie, we need to go now. We cannot wait." He goes, and I said, "Well, Bill knows that I might," and he said, "You're not getting it. This is bad. This is almost getting to where the river was with Hurricane Irene. We need to go now." And I said, "Okay." So I quickly sent off an email to the chairman saying, "I'm going to go now. John feels like we have to cross now." So we jumped in the cars. We came home. There were waves in the river, like, white-capping waves, and it was really high, and it looked really scary, but I had John with me. And we each had bought a bag of groceries just independently that day. So we each had our bag of groceries, and then I had a canvas bag that I'd take to work every day that had my laptop in it. And John had a bag, like a computer bag, that's strapped across his body, and that's what he would leave in every day. So we were very solemn. I mean, we knew it was very serious, but we got there and together we stood on the platform of pallets and we were eyeing the river and we were eyeing the tram. We put our groceries on it and my bag. And, we kept looking and it was scary, but we made the decision that we could cross. We thought we could cross. So at that point, the way it worked is that the person riding sat on the front or sat on the bench, and the person driving would stand on the back and kind of give a scooter push forward, and you'd go almost the whole way across. So you'd only have like one, maybe two pulls to do. So you were holding on to the frame with one hand, and you would just do one or two pulls at the end, and you were there. So we make the decision, we get on. Right before we left, John reached down into my canvas bag and pulled my laptop out and put it in the bag that's strapped across his body. And he zipped it up. So we started going. I'm sitting on the bench, so my back is to him, standing behind me. And we got almost all the way across, and all of a sudden I kind of felt a jerk. And I could tell by maybe John uttered something, but I knew something had gone wrong. And I turned around to look like this at him. And as I turned around, I saw our grocery bags bobbing, a bag of Tostitos actually, which was pretty funny, in retrospect. The image of this bag of Tostitos just going up and down in the waves downstream with the bag that it was on. And I turned around, and right then I realized that a wave had hit the side of the tram and started to flush over it. And when it did, it took all of our stuff down, including my canvas bag. But it also made the whole tram sway out a little bit like this. And in a split second, I was trying to comprehend all that. And my first thought was, I can't believe we lost our groceries. And then I realized how much trouble we were in. And so I looked at John, and he had his hand on his one arm. That's the only one he could use on the rope. So I turned back around and grabbed up with one arm, and we just pulled with all we had to get through that last little leg of water and get the tram onto dry ground. So we got across, and we hooked the tram up, and we got off. And the first thing I did was kind of yell an expletive. As soon as I yelled about the fact that we had lost all of our groceries, it was like I heard myself, and we looked at each other and like really realized that we were this close to going out together. Because if we had fallen in that river, there was no possibility of swimming out. Like none. It wasn't a borderline call. There was such an incredibly high volume of water moving so fast. And, it was one of the storms where big tree trunks will come down the river. So we looked at each other and sort of realized, like, oh my God, we are lucky to be alive.